Welcome back, everyone. It's episode 4, another amazing interview today. I'm really excited. But before we introduce our next guest, for those of you just tuning in for the first time, welcome to Strong. It's a journey, it's a storytelling journey that shares the stories of women and teenage girls and even young girls' lives with the hope that somebody out there is watching and will connect with one of our guests and feel supported and in part of a community. Today is a special interview. It's an interview that I'm going to be sharing with you, our audience, and my daughter Aya. Aya is 14 years old and is currently a student here in the UAE. And not only is she 14, she's also a young female on her path, on a journey, trying to discover who she wants to become, the hopes that she will be able to identify with her dreams, her aspirations, and of course be able to make it through the challenging times with courage, bravery, and strength. Welcome, Aya. Welcome to Strong. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. How does it feel being here today?
I've seen a lot of the episodes and I'm quite excited to be here.
Sounds great. Thank you for joining me. I know it's a journey of self-discovery and really starting to identify who you are as a young woman. And today's all about you just telling us your story, just telling us what it's like to be Aya. Okay?
Yeah.
So with that beginning, when you knew that you were going to be part of the show and you accepted to be interviewed because you were nominated as one of the strongest young females that I have ever met. And you were getting ready for the interview. You were obviously thinking about the kinds of questions we would be talking about today. Putting that all together, how do you sum up who is Aya?
Well, to be honest, I really don't know the answer to that question. But yeah.
So is it a question that makes you feel confused, excited, not really sure? What are the feelings that arise in you when you hear somebody say, "Who is Aya?"
It probably makes me want to think about it further and figure that out for myself and see where it takes me.
Excellent. So it's hard for me, being your mom, of course, and probably hard for a lot of the older generation to understand teenagers today. Sometimes teenagers are described as rebellious, disinterested, concerned, confused, highly stressed. Of all of these things, I think what we most want to understand is what it's like to be a teenager. More importantly, today, what is it like to be Aya on a typical day?
Well, on a typical day, I normally have school, which is quite stressful. I think the hardest part of the day would probably be maybe like the tests that I would have or any homework that I would need to get done later on that day.
And what makes that a typical day for you? Why would you say that would be your typical day?
Because normally at school it gets quite stressful because I have my GCSEs coming up, and so I guess, preparing myself for that gets quite difficult every day.
And when nobody's watching, when the teachers aren't in the room, when your parents are letting you be, when your brother is not annoying you, and your friends are home, what is it like to be Aya when nobody's watching? How do you spend that time alone?
I probably spend that time listening to music or dancing in my room somewhere or doing something along those lines.
So what comes to your mind when parents complain about their teenagers, when they're saying they're always on their phones or they're constantly online and they're selectively hearing what we're saying? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that is true. I do spend a lot of time on my phone every day. But I feel like teenagers on their phones kind of gives them time to cool down from their days and also helps them maybe find ideas for what they want to do in the future. And I think that just helps cope with the days easier.
I heard you say the stresses of exams coming up, and now I heard you say again with coping with the day. What are some of the things that we don't understand about being 14 or being a teenager today?
Probably the pressure between people asking you what you want to be when you're older, and then when it comes to picking your GCSEs, probably not knowing what you want to do exactly and not knowing where it'll take you. So that's probably the hardest part and what you have to figure out.
And of course you can only talk about your own experience, but seeing where you are right now at 14 and understanding the pressures of thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, and I'm sure a lot of people ask teenagers that today is, what are you going to do and what do you want to be? You could go back to being 5 or 6 all over again. What would you remind yourself to be or to do or even to have?
I think probably tell myself to stay in ballet because my mom would always tell me to do ballet and keep focused on ballet, but I found it so difficult to focus. So I tell myself to stay in ballet and focus on that and try not to mess around.
Why ballet? Why would you want to do ballet all over again?
I think because now that I do gymnastics, ballet kind of helped me do better at it, and probably if I stayed in ballet, I'd be able to get further and see where that would take me.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say if you could go back to being 5 or 6, not only would you listen to your mother again, but you would also be resilient in an activity that you found a little bit harder. And that takes us to challenges. So I know that exams are a stress with teenagers today, and the pressures of being able to respond almost in an instant about what they want to be when they grow up. What are some of the other challenges that you face and that maybe some of the other teenage girls in your circle of friends would be facing?
I think it would be the way that people look at teenagers and girls, and especially the way that boys expect teenage girls to look and the pressure that they put on them, and the way their words can affect teenage girls all around the world, and even the way that some boys can affect other teenage boys and their expectations of what they think a day-to-day normal person would look like.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Probably the way, like in magazines, they're showing these grown, beautiful women when they could be showing these maybe not as skinny or not as glowing skin women, or maybe even men in makeup magazines would even help boost teenagers nowadays' confidence and help them know who they are a little better.
So do you feel that the role models that you as teenagers are being exposed to every day are almost unrealistic?
Yeah.
How so?
It just gives teenagers the wrong idea and turns them into bad people because of the way that they're grown up and they're brought up and the ideas that they're given on TV and from parents and social media.
That's a really interesting take. Coming from that, Aya, what would you advise parents who might be struggling with their teenage daughters and not really able to understand that they're just trying to keep up with what they believe they're supposed to be doing or supposed to be looking like or supposed to be behaving like? What are some of the tips you can offer parents watching?
My tips to parents would be to not always show your daughter or your son that you're the enemy, and help them understand that you could be a friend to talk to, and show that they could tell you anything and your immediate reaction wouldn't be angry or upset or disappointed, and that you'd be understanding and someone that they could speak to in times of matter.
It's really mature, Aya. I want to move a little deeper. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I know you said one of the pressures that you feel is when people ask you, what do you want to be? Or when you grow up, what do you want to do? So with the fear of maybe triggering that, I would like to ask you, what are some of your hopes? What are some of your dreams or even some of your aspirations?
Well, since a little child, when I first got into gymnastics, my biggest dream was to go to the Olympics or at least get into college gymnastics. But I think right now that's not my biggest goal, and it's maybe something along the lines of empowering like women around the world like you do, or helping girls figure out what they really want to be when they're older, and something like an influencer, something like that.
That's really beautiful. What brings you to this learning that you feel that you want to do more for others?
I think what we've been through and what caused the trauma of my sister passing away kind of had to do with people's images and what people thought about how people look. And I think by spreading awareness about people's feelings and the words that people use in the labels, it could help loads of teenage girls and boys around the world.
How did you get so smart, Anna? What is the biggest challenge you've faced so far in your life?
Maybe finding the right people to share good moments and sad moments with. And I feel like at this time, as a teenager, it's hard to find real people that you could speak to and that could understand how you feel. So I think that would be a hard emotional obstacle.
How do you do it? How do teenage girls today connect with each other? How do they help each other through those challenging moments? You said it's hard to find people. So how do they find a friend or a confidant?
Maybe by during times of trauma, you could connect with people and really find out who will be there for you at your worst and who will be there for you at your best, and just get to know who people really are and understand who is going to be there for you through it all.
It's a big one. And I think women as well, I believe that it doesn't matter how old you are, it's hard to find those people that you can really reach out to, isn't it? So you've seen how your family has coped with the trauma in their lives. And I've watched you going through that trauma. I've heard a lot of people complimenting you on how strong you've been. And I've seen how vulnerable you are. I'm in awe of you, Aya. I really am. I'm in awe of the fact that you're 14 and you have gone through emotional trauma that I don't know anyone else at your age ever had to, myself included. And I'm really in awe and I'm so humbled that you're my daughter. Aside from the fact that I love you so much, but really, how do you do it? How are you 14? How did you get over the emotional obstacles?
I think just knowing that every day it would get easier. No matter what would get thrown at me, it would get easier, and that I had my whole family to help me through it all, and knowing that eventually it wouldn't hurt as much as it does, and I just have to keep on going.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really hard. What do you wish if you could go back in time before any of this ever happened? What do you wish that you could have done to prepare Aya for what was coming?
I think there's nothing I could really do to prepare myself except just trying to get along with my sister more and make more memories and find a way to just connect with her more than I could so that it wouldn't be as hard as it is now.
Now, I have to say, Aya, not because I'm your mom, but because I was an observer on that journey you had with your sister. You were an awesome sister. If she were here today, she would say the same thing. Aya, how do we help you on the Strong journey? How do we support you? Strong is about telling stories. It's about sharing our lives to create a community so that young girls like you could have real role models that are vulnerable, courageous, brave, strong. How can we support you?
I think by keeping Strong alive and keeping these episodes from being filmed, because even though there aren't teenage girls around the world, billions of teenage girls around the world contacting you, it's a silent thing that is helping them push through their problems. And it's an inspiration to loads of people around the world. So I think by keeping #Strong alive, it's helping a lot of people.
Thank you, Aya. That brings us to the end of our interview. I want to thank you. Courageous, strong, brave. There's not enough adjectives, Aya, to say how I feel about you right now, how I feel about you every day. And I'm just so proud that you were able to do this so that every other teenage girl can look at you and say, I can do that. And that brings us to the end of episode 4, probably one of the most special episodes I will ever have the honor of being part of. And next week brings us another amazing woman. Nancy Castro is going to be joining us to talk about her journey from being an entrepreneur in the United States of America to becoming the wife, life coach, and beautiful entrepreneur out here in the Middle East. Thank you for watching.